friends, welcome to this commentary video. I have 3 questions for you that I have collected from my comments around the North Node transit in Taurus material that I have been publishing. I have lots of comments. It's been a while, several months since I made a commentary video answering questions, so they kind of backed up on me, so I'm getting to them. I know it's late, but better late than never. That's my philosophy as a highly mutable person. So I have 3 comments that I'm going to answer today, and then, like I said, I have multiple of these ready to go as well. So the very first question that I'm going to answer is, I have the opposite node placements. Can I transpose the information and apply for my placements? Also, I believe my North Node is in the 3rd house. Does that make any difference at this point? So if you are having your cross-nodal return, meaning your North Node is in Scorpio, I highly recommend that you check out this video, which is specifically about the Scorpio North Node placement, working with this Taurus North Node transit, where it is going to create your cross-nodal return. So that's a good starting point. It does matter that your North Node is in the 3rd house, especially when you know your birth time and you're confident about the house that you're seeing. Yes, that is just another layer of the story of what it is that you're here to evolve. So I highly recommend that you also, in that case, check out this video. This is for the sign of Gemini. If your North Node is in the sign of Gemini, or if your North Node is in the 3rd house, Gemini being the 3rd sign, the 3rd house being the one most closely associated with Gemini. So that video would add a layer of dimension to the Scorpio North Node chapter that we suggested first. And I'll just say just a teensy bit about as far as like combining the sign and the house. When we look at the nodes, they move decently slowly, so they spend about 18 months per sign. So that means that if you were born right in the middle of one of those nodal cycles, then everybody about 9 months older than you and everybody 9 months younger than you has that same nodal axis activated in their karmic evolution. You all came at the same time. And that's where the sign that your nodes are in, they will give you a big chunk of the information, but the slower the object moves, the more important the house becomes as far as identifying how this is unfolding in your life, right? The signs are the motivations. We are our signs and we do our houses. So the house placement can tell you a lot about what do the physical activities look like when it comes to you moving through this South Node to North Node transition. So this is a question that I have been really looking forward to answering and have done a little bit of soul searching since I first saw it to see if I can answer it as best as I possibly can, which is all we can ever do. So this person says, been listening to info on letting go and purging for all my adult life, but it's meaningless without a deep dive into the mechanics, the actual processes of how to do this. You can't just believe you let go, can't trick yourself. The act of letting go can be construed as attachment to the process itself. How do you know? So I think this is a great question as far as like, how do you know and how do you actually practically let go of deep things? I do think that the answer is often so simple sometimes that it can be deceptively obvious. And this is where, like in the deep dive, the original video that I'll put here on the screen, it talks a lot about that scorpionic process of making the unconscious conscious, of like the Scorpio part of the process is really just looking the things in the face, being with the things. So like, how do we let go? Well, when I have one example that happened a few months ago in meditation, but I was closing my eyes to meditate and I saw something that was deeply upsetting to me, and it instantly like kicked me out of the meditative space. I don't want to be in there. That freaking sucks to look at. And so it took me a few minutes to like get myself together and to go back into the upsetting vision. And as I sat with the upsetting vision, that initial vision kind of like cleared away, and there was something deeper motivating this fear, this awful thing, this awful image that I was seeing. And I hadn't been aware of the deeper level at all in my conscious mind. It wasn't known to me. I did know that I was scared of the first thing that it showed me, but it was very informative about how I'm actually not scared of this thing that I thought I was scared of. I'm scared of this deeper level of what's really going on inside of me. That really is what is motivating the fear. So through that scorpionic process, you clear one level at a time. As you be with it, as you understand, where do you come from? What this fear, this pain, this agony, this heartbreak that I'm feeling, why are you here? What message do you have for me? And as you sit with those painful things and you be with them and you look at them and you work to understand them, that top layer clears away and you get to see further deeper into yourself that there is a deeper level of roots at work. And most likely sometimes it's like, it'll connect back to how you were treated in childhood. It'll connect back to a wound that happened. Like I was also just journaling this morning about how I'm having this situation in my life that is bringing up patterns of energy, AKA Scorpio South Node, like making the unconscious conscious. Like I'm in a situation that is reminding me of these patterns of energy that the last time that I experienced it was in college, and mostly it reminds me of middle school and second grade. And these experiences from second grade and middle school and this pattern of energy that I am right now feeling, it's like this brought with it guilt and regret and self-judgment. And again, it pushed me out of wanting to be in that space. And yet I get my game face on and I go back in because I understand that if I'm being shown these images, if I'm being reminded and like viewing this pattern of energy, that it must be time. And so I sat there and journaled for like 2 pages about like basically how I was then and how I've learned and how I can see where my old wounds are being triggered, and it lets me understand my wounds even more deeply. And essentially, like, letting go sounds really deceiving in how final it sounds. Like, I let go of that thing, and it's like one point in time, I did it, I got it done, and now I'm done with it. And I personally don't even necessarily believe that that's like a real thing when it comes to emotional healing. I think it's like we can unravel it one more layer and then one more layer. And it's like the knot, the energetic knot that once was this big, it's like maybe the Scorpio South Node transit of purging and having things brought to our surface, maybe that makes the knot this big. So it's not ever a matter of like, how do I let this go? How do I be without it? That's kind of coming to it from like really sinking into, I really don't like where I am. And I think there's a piece of Scorpio territory that, one, it absolutely requires emotional strength. So no shame whatsoever if when you witness those painful things inside yourself, that it kicks you straight to the curb of like, I can't take this, it hurts too much. So that's entirely possible. And sometimes we need support to travel back into those places. Like I see a lot of people with like, I had body trauma, and like anytime I meditate or I try to go into my body, like it's basically re-traumatizing because all of that energy is still in there. So how to do the scorpionic thing where we be with our pain long enough so that we can understand the level of our pain that we have access to, such that we can get that level out of the way and we can have access to a deeper, more causal root of our pain. And maybe that's it. Maybe that layer needs cleared so that we can get to an even deeper root. Like, depending on how far back these things go and how many interconnected little webs it weaves with everything else that's ever transpired in your life, like these unravelings, these letting goes can take a lifetime. And I am going to recommend 2 videos as far as like practically speaking, how do you do this? What does it actually look like? The first video is called Divine Feminine Rising, and the second video is called Embodiment. And in both of them, I go in detail about what it was like to step into myself in a meaningful way, in an intentional way, and with the intention of I am going to hold space for whatever is inside of me, which is a very Scorpionic intention of like, whatever's in there, I'm gonna be with it. I'm gonna hold space for myself. I'm gonna hold love for myself. And that was like the first day of this big, massive intention that kind of got launched inside of me. And then the next day began a whole period of several weeks where I cried almost every single day, all day long. Like over and over and over, would just erupt into tears. Some of them felt like my heart was literally breaking, like I couldn't breathe, it hurt so bad. Mind you, I'm just sitting in my bed. Like I'm just like chilling, and these waves of emotion just kept coming. And I think that's it as far as like, how do you actually, practically speaking, let it go? You have got to process the pain. You've got to cry the tears that never got to be cried, that were never allowed to come forth. That energy was triggered, that pain was triggered, and then in order to let it go, you have to feel the pain. You have to let it affect you, and chances are it's gonna make you bawl like a baby. At least it did me. No shame. So I don't know if that answers the question as far as like everyone in like a general sense, how do you let go? But definitely that has been an experience that I can recall with feeling like those tears that I cried, they absolutely lightened my energetic load. There was a shedding of layer after layer after layer of maybe even lifetimes worth of pain. And it came through as deep pain, heartbreak, guilt, joy, overwhelming joy. Sometimes the bawling would be happy tears. It just felt so good to be alive. Like really, when you get into your body and you get full access to your emotions, like, oh man, there's a whole carnival happening in there. And the last question in today's episode is, what is sacred rage? The commenter asks, rage is out of control anger. Sacred is inner power and surrender to my highest self. Yes. I'm going to take their definitions of both of these and set them aside, because rage, I do believe, is a degree of anger, as in, you know, I personally relate to emotions as a spectrum where none of them are discrete. They all blend from one to the next. In a way where possibly you might have like completely neutral here in the middle. And then if something is not to your liking, the first level of emotion that you'll recognize is you're a little bit annoyed. And if that uncomfortable stimuli continues for long enough, you'll move into frustrated. And then if it continues for long enough, you'll move into anger. And then if it continues for long enough, you'll move into rage. And so that's how I personally relate to it. Everybody use that however you want. But as far as like, so that is rage. It's very intense anger. It like takes anger and makes it look like peanuts compared to like rage. In my experience, it puts a fire on your skin. It can actually make you see colors in your eyeballs, like in your range of vision. Like I can see red, I can see black. It can like give you tunnel vision. There is usually thoughts. They're usually like something, I have an activated throat center, so it makes me usually want to yell something really loud. Sometimes I do. That's one of the ways that I channel that, is like to scream or like yell things. And sometimes you got to yell. Sometimes you got to yell. So my thoughts on sacred rage are, again, another kind of like disclaimer or general like foundation is that I personally feel that all emotions are sacred. So we could have a conversation about sacred guilt or sacred jealousy or like sacred happiness, like sacred anything, right? Like the fact that we are alive, like the life experience itself is sacred, and the emotional spectrum itself, that guidance, that inner guidance that belongs to us, that gives us real time, in the moment information about which direction we're going, as far as like, are you getting closer to what you want or further away from what you want, aka positive emotion or negative emotion. Big quotations around positive and negative because they are all sacred. All of them, every single one of them. So that is like, basically they're all sacred. So when we put it all together and we have sacred rage, what I'm talking about is basically a level of anger where you can feel how out of whack, how separated your soul is from the concept that you're taking in. The, whatever issue it is, or whatever behavior it is, or whatever stimuli it is that is causing you to feel rage, aka sacred rage, that stimuli has crossed your path for a reason. And basically that's where I'm at, as far as like, I'm not here to just be pissed off for no good reason. I'm here to let it move me, to let it inform me, that if I am feeling rage, that maybe there is something that I am supposed to do about it. Sacred rage, like, let it inform, what were you born for? I know I was born to stand up for people who are having their rights taken away. Like, I am here to support people who want to support themselves. Like, I am here. And so it's these kinds of pieces that when we are inspired or filled with sacred rage, it causes us to engage in the world differently. It can cause us to organize where before maybe we wouldn't have cared enough to organize. It causes you to step outside your comfort zone, to do something, to take action that you wouldn't have normally taken if you weren't so deeply bothered by whatever it was that you were seeing. And basically in today's world, like, there are a lot of little, like, I see like little snare traps out in the world that can like get you hooked up real quick into some sacred rage and get you feeling all of your anger coming online all at once. Especially right now in the astrology, we have Jupiter and Mars and Chiron all in Aries, and that is giving a big fire, a big passion, to a big charge to the energy in general. And when we see things that are so far out of whack with our soul that it fills us with rage, sacred rage, that is one of the most informative, most clarifying experiences you can have to understand. So what is your soul? When you experience what you don't want, you know more clearly what you do want. And in that way, sacred rage is incredibly productive. Dear friends, thank you so much for joining me for this installment of Comment Commentary. I will be back with another few comments answering those questions here pretty soon. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and even if it may take me a hot minute or 1,000 to get back to them, I surely am watching for your divinely inspired questions. I have no doubt that the things that come through as far as answering like one person's question, by the time it reaches out to this video, it's like those answers, they tend to weave themselves into like whoever's watching the video at this time. Maybe this is exactly what you needed to hear. So in the grand life cycle of questions and answers, I thank you, those of you that have left me questions, and to anyone finding value in these answers, I encourage you to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, leave your own comment down below. All of these things help further this work into the world and encourage me to make more. So I thank you so much for your support. Until next time, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.